Hello, friends. I hope everybody is doing well. My name is Christina Grozik, and I'm with a documentary film called Going which we hope will inspire people to consider their relationship with sound. And in the spirit of sound, and to keep those discussions going, because sound is everything, right? We have a very special guest with us today, and I am so excited to be able to introduce him. And he has spent so much time on sound, vibration, frequency, and energy. So I cannot wait for this discussion. So I would like to introduce Jens Zygar. So hello.
Oh, thank you very much for this kind introduction. I'm very happy to talk to you, and thank you very much for your resonance and your interest.
Yeah, and thank you for all of the work you do. I mean, you've been doing this for a little bit. You've been doing this for maybe over 30 years, possibly.
Well, exactly. I started my decision was 1984. So this is how long? I think it's what 35 years, maybe like this,
I think
36
so.
years.
Yeah.
Yes, it was, and it was a kind of life decision, and it came from the inside, and it came from and the motivation was to make something that makes sense in this life, because everything I experienced around me somehow made kind of less sense, because I felt something is missing in the coordination of whatever it is, like, I mean, I'm living in Germany, so, and my generation, I was the first generation after the war ended, so somehow I am a post-war child, I would say. And at that time, of course, I didn't think that much of it. But now, when I started to put my interest on sound music, you at the same time put your interest on the psychology of a moment. About everything you experience about sound is very much about psychology, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's amazing your like how your perception and your perspective can change everything, and just how you perceive something and the psychology behind that is incredible. For
Yeah.
sure, it can change everything. So in 1984, you started the Klang House, which is it means Klang means sound. Am I saying that correctly? Klang?
Absolutely beautifully correct.
Awesome. Awesome. So you started that and it is a research center for sound and rhythm. So what exactly, like when you say a research center, what were you researching?
Okay, but first of only to be honestly honest. Okay, so if you do something, you must give it a name. So if you said, okay, because it was everything was so new, there was even the word wellness was far away from existing. I think at that time even a word like yoga studio would it be a word that nobody know. It was how do I name my idea, my vision? And so what I'm doing, I'm researching, but I'm researching something that I don't really know what it is. So how do I? And people sound sad. This is very suspicious. What are you doing? And but so when you say no, I'm a researcher on sound, people would not even ask a question. Ah, you are a researcher. So I found out that being a researcher sounded like a nice title, right? And for the institute for, and I even changed the name on the way. So it was also a institute for performance art and sound music. So I had a spectrum of names actually, right? And somehow all these names are like circling or giving perspectives on the let's say the miracle of sound. Why is sound a miracle? Well, for me, sound is a language. So, and in this language, we can communicate our, let's say, in a more open way. Our emotions can be part of the conversation. Our unconscious thoughts can be part of the communication. So, and on yes, so it was a kind of research on the potential of a non-verbal media of interaction.
I love that. I love that so much. Yeah, because if you think about it, and even if you look at concert venues or certain artists that will go all over the world and tour, right? And they'll pack stadiums, and sometimes the words like in the language doesn't really always necessarily translate depending on where in the world they are, but the
Yes,
feeling does. The feeling
yes.
does. So yeah, I love that you describe that as a language because it really is. I mean, it can evoke such intense emotion within us,
Mhm.
you know.
Yes.
So yeah, I absolutely love that. So, what are some of the things that you have found through your research with sound?
What I've well, they it is well one of the most important things is that it is not uh, well to think about it, or the intellectual understanding the process will not really help you, right? Even it's and it's not the big point, the big chance is to, let's say, to give yourself into the moment. And your and I always suggest to experience your body as a vehicle to travel into the space. So in my concept and in my teachings, which I call integral sound work, it's very much about focusing on the body and using the body as a tool to generate the sound and transport it and be with the sound. So I found it very important, like, for example, if you are with the sound because you have a certain ceremony or a certain habit of doing some kind of, fancy, you say, voodoo moves, then even if you do them nicely, it maybe it is just a cliche. So, but the sound gives you an option to be your authentical self, and this does not come from thinking. This is, you don't think in this moment. So, and this is even this would be also the practice for how do you experience that. Everybody would, or somebody, yes, I want experience, I want exactly that. How do I do it? So, and then it's very easy. You start to exhale, right? And you exhale, and then then space is generated, and this space will be filled with sound. I should have sound by now, but you have your imagination, right? And so it is, doing sound work is very much about slowing down and getting the mind out of its very, very, very busy, active state of looking, judging, trying desperately to understand the cosmic octave.
Yes. Yes. Wow, that was beautiful. That was beautiful the way you described that because it really, I mean, my journey with it too has been about finding the sound is what brought me to silence. And I like to say, when people, well, what's that like, right? So you can tell somebody something, right? But until they experience it, they're not there yet. So it's letting go. It's just letting go and allowing yourself to be, like you said, being a tool, being a vehicle to receive. And I love the way you described that. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
we
and but and then letting go is the beginning, right? And then next one is you pick it up. So you do both. You let it go, and then you get the space, and then you will pick it up. And this is the moment where you have the chance to become yourself. It is like you invite your, let's say, intuitive intelligence. You invite your unconscious, to be part of the, like unfolding of your potential. But you need your body to express it. If you are there and like and just, you know and you don't use your body, you are somewhere else. Not necessarily lost, but I think it's very much about becoming aware. And people speak so much about mindful attention. So how does it go? I think these are all very active things.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with you. But yeah, I love, so when you're saying like you started saying like you exhale and you're creating space. So
Yes.
then you're inviting the sound after that to fill you with
Well,
that vibration. Is that how would, yeah?
yes, I would even put it. I would even suggest to become more precise in terms of little details. So when you're, this is, for example, a way that I suggest to play gongs and singing boards or any sound music instrument. So the quality of a sound comes from the dialogue with the silence. If there is sound all the time, it might be interesting, but something important is missing. And it is just the silence that makes the sound becoming, well, what it is. So when you exhale and you really, like melt with the silence as much as possible, then there is this moment where the new sound has its first spot. So where is the moment where the sound starts? And so then when you generate a sound, either you play a gong or you have a singing bowl. And so that's why I suggest to be, like to be, let's say, as subtle as possible, because people are surprised how little activity it needs to realize there is sound. And this sound can already touch you. So, from my opinion, many people exaggerate. They consume much too much, too much, too much, too much, too much sound, which is absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong about this. But if you want to go into the, let's call it the mystery, and experience where is the magic happens. Besides, it can be very magical if you have an overwhelming fantasy because you're flying through space and a lot of activities. Nothing wrong about this, but there's a variety, and I always suggest to start where, because not only the sound goes into silence, but also the sound comes off the silence. And when you have, and this is where your body becomes very electrical, and then you want this all your body to feel this excitement when the sound starts, and it's very nice, and this is very enjoyable. And this is, and when it's nice and it's enjoyable, then it is also, from my perspective, the moment when what people say, what is the healing, what is the self-healing, where the self-healing starts, that you allow your body to feel nice and you enjoy it, and you tell your body it's good to enjoy it, let's enjoy it to the max, right? And then you would inhale and create more sound. And then it is, well, and when you reach the point where your inhaling is done, then you reach the point of the activities. So you have this, you hold this, and then you go down again. So sound music is very much about waves, sound waves. So when people say the vibration of a sound, yes, it's quite intellectual term, but when you say the waves, you have the idea of, yeah, waves on the beach.
Yeah, and I mean, with the waves and the beach and all of that, I mean, we're like
Mm,
70% give or take water, right?
yeah,
So yeah, it makes sense that that vibration would happen and create, movement in the system.
absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I love it. So you had mentioned, and I think this is such an we were talking before we officially started our dialogue here, right? We were talking beforehand about words and just how interesting words can be and the impact of them. So one of the terms that you had mentioned since we've been talking is the cosmic octave. So for
Mhm.
someone that's like, "Wow, that was a really cool word. What does that mean?" Can you explain what that the sense of it is, maybe?
Well, first of all, the cosmic octave is the contemporary science on the order frequencies of nature. It's a science. It's not a fantasy, it's a really science. And it's also the name of a group of artists and researchers, mathematical researchers and astrologers. And it started in the 80s in Munich, in Germany. And it was a bunch of hippies being high on psychedelic mushroom and figuring out about fundamental keynotes, and they had the question where the fundamental notes, and as there were mathematicians, they started to see what is it that can be calculated that would lead to fundamental tunings. And they had the idea that the biggest vibration that are affecting anybody's life are the vibrations of nature as they come along when the earth spins around itself, when the moon moves around, the earth circles around the sun, the little planets move around the sun, everything, this whole solar system is set up in a perfect, harmonious, repeating way. It's cycling, and all these cycles can be measured. And in the moment something is cycling and you can measure it, then using the law of the octave, this is one understanding part, you can transfer the cycle into the audible range. And octave basically means, everybody knows a piano, right? And in the piano, if you play, for example, the G note G, and even if you didn't study piano and somebody would say, play it an octave lower, even if you wouldn't find it at the first, but you know what to do, right? So you have the same note, but the octave lower, which means that the vibrating number is half down, is cut to a half, right? Octave, you can down octave or up octave. So, and then you make another octave and you still have a very deep tone. And then if you have another octave, there is no more tone because the piano probably stops right there. But from the numbers, you still have a number of half of the frequency, right? And so, and then you would continue this like for 24 times, and then you have exactly the figure of the Earth circling around itself. This is basically how it works. And so the Cosmic Octave is a big name, and so the name, the core person of the octave is the author called Hans Cousteau, and he's still living. And people like historical scientists would consider this name to need to be presented like Pythagoras, Kepler, Kaiser, Cousteau, because his concept meant a game changer for the world, a game changer in getting a wider understanding of the possible fundamental notes. So far, every music culture had fundamental notes, and they changed through the times. And originally, they were needed like to tune an orchestra, so they all could sound together. It's a very practical thing, so that this exists. So, and for example, like these days, a very popular fundamental note that is suggested by many people is this 4-3-2 hertz. I'm sure you've come across the story, right? And I always say, okay, and so what? So if people speak about 4-3-2 hertz as a keynote A, what they actually mean is that they have a fundamental note that directly derives from the circling of the Earth around the sun. So this is the period, so the year of the Earth creates a frequency, and this frequency calculated in the audible range will actually create a fundamental, and from this fundamental you can get to these 4-3-2 hertz. So, but there are many more fundamental. We could have a fundamental for the moon. We could have a fundamental for the sun. So my suggestion is, and this was part of the researches, like studying different concepts that people or cultures would use to give a understanding of the complexity of the world. I absolutely truly believe that the world is very, very, very complex, and it will never ever be that we have just one frequency being the like the all over holy grail of all frequencies. It's changing. Actually, it's even changing from hour to hour. Everybody who's in astrology knows this. So we were looking also at the traditional Chinese concept, where you have the quality time for the organs. I'm not sure if you heard about that. And so you can combine this with the frequencies and the colors. So we made up a system which is called Cosmo Matrix. So where you have frequencies and colors, responding colors for every hour, and they are, for example, very nice for if you are a wellness practitioner, then you can then you can, it gives you a kind of matrix when is the hour for which frequency, right? And it would make an impact. But of course, you are free to use your intuition. Oh, I don't care about this. I just use anything that I can just grab. And and then this is where people start a little bit like how the mind gets confused. So will you say it doesn't make a difference at all? Yes, of course it makes a difference, but it doesn't matter. And then people getting really confused, but this is the time that anyone spent open himself or herself to the experience. This time will uh, increase the experience, and in this contemporary sound work, the knowledge, the wisdom comes from the experience.
Mm. I see. Yes. Yes. It's interesting because I've heard you just broke that down and described it in a way that, at least for me, was very easy to understand because I've heard different versions of those things being broken down, but not the way you just said it. So thank you, because that was very easy to follow and understand.
Thank you.
For sure. So yeah, thank you for that. And
No, you're
I
welcome.
could talk to you forever. I mean, I'm like absolutely fascinated by everything that we're discussing right now and what you're sharing, and you're giving me a lot to think about, and I'm sure inspiring so many other people out there too with that. So I believe going into, because now I'm like thinking of like sacred geometry and all the math, and just how like we're composed and how we're all connected to everything and everything's interconnected, but it is so complex, but yet we overthink it and pulling it back, right? So there's so many thoughts going through my head right now, and it's like that practice right now of just like, whoo, just settling it down, right? So you had mentioned the Cosmic Octave. You took us through that journey, and then that leads to, I know, people have asked me about like, well, what do you think about these planetary gongs? So do you want to kind of go into that a little bit? And for someone that's never, because we'll have people that have heard of them and then other people that are like, well, what does that mean? What's a planetary gong? So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, the planetary gongs, they came consciously into existence. I think it was like 89, and it was a project that I introduced to the Paiste company. At that time, they were the only company doing, let's say, gongs in a professional way that they could be used by therapists or musicians in the orchestra. I mean, not mention the Chinese gong, of course, but let's say the Western gong. And basically, it's a orchestra. It's a symphonic gong. Symphonic gong means a wide sound spectrum, not a specific sound, but a possible wide sound spectrum. But now, due to the skills of the gong manufacturers, they were able to work a central frequency into the gong. So it's a symphonic gong, but with a keynote tuned into it. This keynote that's tuned into it, some people would say, well, it reduces the spectrum of the gong and it creates a fundamental note in this gong, but that's the purpose here. That's what it's supposed to do. So you can say that according to the cosmic octave, every planet of the solar system has its own frequency from the way it moves. So this frequency can transpose in a audible frequency, and this frequency is produced into a gong. So you can imagine like a acoustic planetarium, for example. But before it comes to this vision, it means that you have the possibility to really tune in into the resonance field of any of the planets that surrounds us. And I always suggest, if there are two ways. One is you just do what you want. You're free to be completely intuitive and just follow your heart or your inspiration, jump into it. There's nothing wrong about this. But if you say, okay, I really want to study it, then I always suggest to start with the frequencies of the earth, because the earth is our home space in this universe, or multiverse, as I would call it. And I find it's most important that we understand the earth, being on the earth. And then we move on from there. We probably look at the moon, and then we understand the moon, which is very complex, right? And then feeling the moon, and working with the moon for, I don't know, even 1 year as it runs through the zodiac, cycling around. It gives you emotions, different perspectives. It's all about understanding ourselves. It's all about, it's because the universe is already perfect, and the universe don't care if we understand it or not. It's not care at all, but for us it's important to understand ourselves. And how do we do it? Yeah, looking at nature. Very simple. We have to go to sleep, we wake up, and do very simple things, and then depends on how much we are in harmony, gliding in. So planetary gongs are resonant instruments that resonate with the frequencies of the nature, as we can see them from the planets. But I always suggest to remember that all these frequencies are vibrating, all of them at the same time, every time. They never stop. If any one of them would stop, we would be in a cosmic disaster. Then we don't have to think about anything anyhow. So I'm saying this because some people say, okay, now what's the frequency of the moon? What's the difference to the Venus? If both is love and emotions and feminine, how do you suggest I should take Venus and our moon? I don't know what to do, right? So, but the question is very kind of tricky, because it's very, very, let's say, complex. Let me say, it's impossible to really sense the difference, because it's all like part. It's like, let's say it's one soup and everything is already in this soup. So now you take out the pepperoni, or I commit my life to the pepperoni. I don't care about onions, only pepperoni.
Yeah.
It wouldn't make sense, wouldn't it?
No, no, no. So let me ask you this. So you were talking about, like, the best place to start this journey is just here on our own planet, our own home, in nature. So what are some everyday exercises that you could suggest that people might be able to do to get more in touch and more in tune with what we have available to us here?
Well, the most important, for sure, probably the greatest question that, or not only that you ask this, but what I really would like to see people to take care of is, like, the greatest instrument that we have is our voice, right? So we don't need a gong.
Mhm.
I know the gong, they will not like it, but, well, we have the voice. We have the biggest instrument in this. So when we are, let's say, for example, when we wake up, or either we go to sleep, and we don't use the option simply to make oh, or in the morning ah, it sounds a little bit maybe childish or foolish, but if you really do it, even if there's hardly any nature around, you have a glimpse, you just see a little kind of sky or sun outside. You live in a mega city. I've seen so many, like, very few people have the chance or the gift to live in a natural environment. Most people live in terrible habitats of a lot of technicalized, well, environment. And this is why I suggest to even rethink that doing sound work, it is not just a habit for fancy psychological, like free-minded people on interest for evolution. No, it can, today I see it as a inevitable as a needed tool for survival. So to be able, like all the electronics, everything, the mobile phones, all the technology is not respecting the vibrational setup that we have as bodies, because the people who engineered that, they didn't think of frequencies of the cells, they didn't think of frequencies in your brain or your heart. And it is just today that we start to realize this. And so, and for example, I have it right here, or at least I have one tool. For example, the basic tool is the tuning fork, right? Like this is so much needed, and this is one of so the gongs are for the outside sounds, and the tuning forks are for the inside sounds. And if, for example, then if you work with the frequencies of the cosmic octave, the year and the moon, you just had it, you put it on your chest, and then I could go and be with this tune, and we could go anywhere.
Yes. Yes.
A
Yes.
very good tool, very good tool. And I have so many great experiences, like we spoke before, like when I worked on a cruise ship, which is like for me like working on a spaceship. It's kind of step in the future already happening. I love science fiction, and I'm interested in people, and I don't think we are going back in the cave. And I think we will have nice geodetic domes under the palm trees, not just the palm tree, but the dome, right? We need the dome there. And they and if you live in this kind of extremely civilized habitats, then it's very much important that you take care, because you're responsible for yourself. You cannot blame it on the engineers. Come on, engineer, you forget to make my mobile smart for my brain waves, Then they would say, get you an app for that, But it's good to have the app, but the tuning fork is better because it works without electricity.
Yes. Yes.
Right. And so starting in with the tuning fork, this is if somebody was okay, now how can I have experience? Because the gong experience is you will leave it to those crazy people who commit their life to be gong practitioners and facilitators of cosmic spacers, which some people they want to benefit from that, but not necessarily start it, because it's a lot of effort, a lot of work. Gongs are heavy. You need stands, you need mallets, oh my God, you need rooms for that. So it's a bit challenging, but it became very popular, or is becoming more and more popular. So chances wherever you live, you Google sound gong practitioner, gong meditation, there are many words for that, you probably find one. But if you think of yourself, please start with the tuning fork. This is so easy, it's not expensive at all, and is very, very beneficial, and it gives you your personal experience, and you feel what you can get from it.
I love that. I love that. Well, thank you for offering that. I appreciate it. And I love the fact that you had mentioned the voice too, because
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
something I was in a store the other day, and I was buying something, and the guy waiting on me was like, and then he caught him. He's like, "I'm so sorry. I just did that. I'm not used to being back at work." And I said, "Are you kidding? I love the fact that you just did that." I'm like,
Yeah,
"You just let it go. I love that. That was great." I'm like, "Yeah,
yeah,
do it more." you know? So,
yeah.
yeah, I think it's so great. So, what are some of your favorite sounds? What are some sounds that when you hear them, it's just this wave of like, "Oh, wow, everything is right in this world at this moment."
Well, there are some sounds that, well, the basic sound struck in my head. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say it here on the internet in public. It's kind of private sound, the sound of love, of course. It's a great sound. But the sound of, well, any sound that comes from nature, like in the moment, I hear sound of the wind, just getting through the leaves of a tree. It touches me, and it gives me a feeling of being connected, and or the sound of the beach waves coming on the shore and disappearing, right? Or when I was like years and years ago, I was doing gong recordings, and I went into the forest trying to catch up with the first bird, and like to be in the moment of the first bird singing. These are probably my best sound experiences. But I am interested in let's say um, in the nice experience. I'm not so much interested in the sounds of disaster, like sounds of pain, sounds of shooting. Or for example, or like a lot of people are playing computer games where they shoot at each other. This is even something I would leave the space. This is something like I don't want to experience that, and I make choices. Yes, and of course, I mean, so many instruments like the trigon. So let me get off things that we have here. So we have here, we have like tuning forks. We have this is like a trigon, and so this is a very straight sound. And so what we have a tuning. All right. Well, this is sound of the Earth of days. So this is like a trigon. So you could say a sound like this would somehow focus your mind, focus the flow of the emotion, and the practice would be to follow this sound into the silence, which takes a while, right? And you need to be practice your breathing wave, being supporting your attention, moving into the silence, so which requires presence in kind of empty space. So this is kind of challenging. So and this is why you could even call it like a kind of yoga, sound yoga, if you like. So it's still very new, and people can still make up techniques, new styles. Not to speak about sound massage.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because when in the States, in the Midwest area, and then in the South, when I like started going farther south, and I was like, hey, do you do anything like this? And they're like, well, what is that? We don't do stuff like that around here. And I'm like, think of it like a massage for your nervous system. It's like an
Yes,
internal massage, So
yes.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Let me ask you this. What do you think? Like, how do you think sound will be used in the future?
How sound will be used in the future? Well, it will be used much more on purpose, and well, it is already very much used. And just think of any movie, just think of any commercial, like how much effort is on the sound design, how important that is. It's impossible, right? Like not to spend as much attention as possible on the sound design, and just look at all the components that you could buy as a hi-fi system, sound music system lovers, what you see, to see what you can get, or if you want to buy guitars. So ever since people are showing a lot of interest to develop like high-end sound tools and environment, and the purpose is one purpose is, and this is, for example, a research from, I don't know, Alfred Tomatis. He was a French doctor, and he discovered that the character of a person happens in his 9 prenatal months, where a person is in the womb of the mother, and the first organ that's developed is the ear. So the first thing any human does is, even in the womb of the mother, is hearing and collecting the impressions. So hearing is a very important sense for all of us, right? And for example, like the from if you put just get back to the octaves, we can hear 8, 9, 10 octaves, but we only see one octave. So you can say that the ear has the window that the ears gives you to the to life is 8 times bigger than the window of the eyes. So if we balance this in the way we using sound, I mean, like for example, well, just think of any, and we have a term, it's called audionic, and this is it's about constructing like intelligent and smart um, audionic signals and communication tools. And this is how you could idea how you can use the different frequencies of the archetypes that exist in nature, like to combine them. For example, if you are running a plane and you have to communicate with your airplane because so many information that needed that you have to digest, then you could give all the signals, give them sounds, and then you would understand more easy, what the how the situation is. You can do this on medical devices. You could have this in cars. At the high end, of course, you have beautiful wellness studios where people just get their sound cluster that fits to you according to your birth date. We have different projects going on, and one is coming up. Well, I hope at the end of not this year, but end of next year, it will be surely ready on the market. And you would just type in your birth data, birth date, and then you will get your sound of your birth moment according to the anchors of the planets putting out intervals. So you would get a sound which is your birth sound. So you could have it at a ringtone, and then you could modulate it. You get like an app. So if you want to go to have a successful business talk, right, then it would sound a little bit different. Then you would go have a private date, a honeymoon date. It would sound different, but it still would be your sound. So and so if people, I hope that people will realize the options they have to have a harmonic impact on their daily life using sounds consciously.
Yeah. I love that. Well, I'm looking forward to that project for sure. And
Yeah.
it's funny that you mentioned film, because yesterday I interviewed a film director and we talked all about breaking down scenes, and if you pulled out certain sounds, how it would change everything that you are perceiving. So that,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
this is absolutely. So this one of our favorite Stone games was that we took the film of Moby Dick and put the soundtrack of Hair to it.
I love it. I love it, but totally different feeling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but it makes, and you are, it's like oracle. You say, what? Oh my God, and
Yeah.
it makes a new different sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they are, but the situation is actually more serious than we think of it, because it is proven that the overall stress generated from acoustic pollution
Mhm.
is somehow, people are aware of that, but somehow they accept it, or it looks like they accept it as it is I don't know, they accept it as it is. But if you have all like if you're in the habitat, if you look the noises from your fridge, from your ventilation, from any kind of machine, like there was the philosophy or the kind, the louder it is, the better it works.
Mhm.
Many people have this concept. If you don't hear it properly, it cannot work well, which is a ridiculous concept,
Mhm.
but it was an important part of a lot of marketing concepts. So I think it's good when there are more films around that arise the sensibility, or they put more focus on this awareness. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. It changes everything. It
Mhm.
changes everything. And I think we're at a time, like a critical time, that I think we need that kind of change. So I think the more people that have the information that you're providing and some of the other folks are providing, I think we'll just be much better off for it. So thank you so much for taking the time out today and for your presence and for all of your wisdom. I really appreciate it. So,
Thank you very much.
Jens, where can people find you?
Well, today, if they come to Hamburg, it's very easy to Google it. You'll find me just in the middle of it, on the Heinrich Hertz Tower. We are working on it. No, well, it's today. It's very, very easy. Well, you'll find a lot of stuff on my YouTube channel, which is under my name. Of course, I'm on Facebook as everyone else. I have a I have a kind of web space which is under development. It's still some, but because so many activities go on, right? And now even this year of kind of standing still give me a good chance to work some of the data that have been created. I'm rewriting my book. So I suggest, if somebody is really interested, I think YouTube is a cool space to meet.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you for everything that you're doing, and keep up the amazing work. I can't wait to follow your journeys. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. You make me feel very good. Thank
Yeah,
you
well,
very
thank
much.
you. You make all of us feel really good. So thank you. Yeah, and looking forward
Very good.
to meeting in person here. But yeah. All right. Well, thanks
Yeah,
again.
looking forward. I think.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Bye bye.
All right. Bye bye.
Thank you.